Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Less Known Classics. This is episode number 2379, and is that correct? 79? Actually 2380 and 2274. Now, first we have Captain America and Iron Man here. First up we have is the last Masterworks for Captain America I'm going to talk about here. Well, simply because with this book, basically, the very next book is issues I've already covered. So why cover a book I've already covered the issues for? And you're thinking, that makes total sense. I'll review basically about that in a minute. So, with this particular book, this is Masterworks Captain America Volume 13, which collect issues 231 to 246 of Captain America, and Premiere 49. I have discussed this issue already. I'm not going to discuss this issue again, because it's the fucking issue was already talked about in one of the Avengers Masterworks. Now, the first 6 issues in here, 231 236, is basically the National Force story arc. What is National Force? A group of neo-Nazis led by a guy called the Grand Dictator, claims to be supposedly associated with Adolf Hitler, but not really. And one of his members of his group is a brainwashed Sharon Carter. Yes, who at this point was Captain America's girlfriend. And sadly, during the story arc, she died. And you're thinking, wait, she's alive in present day. What the heck happened here? Yeah, it was retconned 20 years later. She actually faked her death. Yep. So, yeah, and who was the Grand Dictator, I might ask? Well, it's revealed half of this story. He says, oh, this is Steve Rogers. And Cap's like, that's not right. I'm Steve Rogers. Well, the explanation for this is the Grand Dictator is the Captain America of the 1950s. The fourth Captain America, William Burnside, who apparently Brubaker resurrected the character for the 2000s for some strange reason. Also, you have Daredevil appear in this storyline too, because Cap has to deal with the whole thing with this National Force stuff. S.H.I.E.L.D. is hesitant to get involved with this because the whole thing with neo-Nazis. And you would think something like Nick Fury would be happy to get involved with this because he fought Nazis in World War II, but yeah, its higher up officials basically keep just interfering with him. But this story is really good, and it turns out, though, that, well, I should point this out, though, that pretty much in a way, like, the person responsible for all this whole group, is none other than Dr. Faustus himself. Yep, he's the one responsible for it. And after this, National Force not seen again until Brubaker's run basically happens. Yep. The very next issue, 237, we have the idea of Ann Koppelberg, who basically is, well, in a way, someone who Steve kind of met during the 1940s, per se, break out of a concentration camp. Yeah, she was basically Cap's landlady because Cap had decided to go off and live in a regular apartment building away from Avengers Mansion. That's basically what he decided to do in the aftermath of the storyline. He said he moved to the mansion because he was living there for quite a while, so he wanted to basically do something of his own. And also, during these issues, he also said, first he looked like he briefly became a police officer, and that was dropped, and he became a comic artist. And then the whole thing basically was dropped. Actually, was still there. At one point, they were rejecting his artwork. And then, of course, basically, they had to calm him down by, well, finding out the fact the editor actually is fought World War II. Yep. I'm like, okay, interesting. Yeah, and also, we have a few characters here in the story. In these issues, we have Josh Cooper, who was a recurring character from this point forward. We'll get the page. Here we go. Yeah, he basically skipped next few issues, but he was pretty much a recurring character from this point forward for quite a while, until basically around 300 and last appearance was issue 600. The other character was Mike Farrell, a firefighter, who also briefly posed as Super Patriot. Yeah, and oh, by the way, I almost forgot to mention basically a couple things here. Number one, who wrote these issues, and number two, who what time period this came out in. So, for these issues, Roger McKenzie is your main writer for these issues, 231, 237, and 243, 245. Basically, for 236, 237, Actually, it's 232, 236, 237. He co-write the issues with Jim Shooter in 232, Michael Fisher on 236, and Chris Claremont. Yes, Chris Claremont on 237. Peter Giles does 238, 239, and Basic does 246. Roger does also co-work on 240 with Alan Paul Kupper, 241, Mike Derry Burr, 242, Stephen Grant. The main artist for 7 issues in here from 231 237 is Sal Buscema. For 238 239 is Fred Kida. Alan Kupperberg does 240. 241 is Frank Springer. Don Perlin does 242 244. 243 is Rich Buckler. 245 Carmen Fantino. And 246 Jerry Buckenheim. The writing for this book, now the issues came up for the time period of March 1979, and it was concluded in June of 1980. Yep. So you kind of think of basically, like I mentioned, what 237, where basically it's an Athens issue, and kind of set for the new status quo that we'll have in front of the next several years. 238 is mostly put a flashback story. Yeah, so they had Nick Fury and Cap team with a guy called Mind Master. There we go. Yeah, and he of course made first appearance page of Submariner. Yeah, so he's here for 2 issues. So it's like, okay, yeah, you can think of basically with 230 and 230 mostly like, there's also a character known as a Widowmaker appears in issues too, and he just, yeah, it feels like these are like filler issues. It didn't really advance the story at all. And in 240, you have Captain on Gangsters. And then 241, he takes on the frickin' Punisher. Yes, and this issue's been collected a few times. Yep. And then we have the Manipulator, who is the military robot who's destroyed in this issue. Yep. In 242. Yep. It's all the captain hallucinations of various people. In 243 is the Lazarus Conspiracy. We have a debut character named Adonis, who's only here for 2 issues before he gets killed off here. Yeah, it's mostly about deal with LMDs. Yeah, Adonis briefly returned as a cameo in the body bag for 245. Yep. And we have where try to take down basically, well, something like that. We have where 246 is basically where takes on a guy called Joe Smith. Just an average guy who apparently first appeared on pages of Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, this guy appeared. This was actually his first appearance since issue 38. You thinking, really? Yeah, really. So we have a regular Joe, just a guy called Joe Smith. And the guy himself, this was, by the way, this comic came out in 79, so 13 years after the guy's debut. And then we have 247, where we deal with Machine Smith and Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. Actually, I already discussed the issue already, but yeah. It's very weird right after the National Force issues. It's like, those issues were good. Really got thoroughly enjoyed them. But it seems as though, like, right after those issues wrapped up, well, except 241, it feels very average. Like, there's no, like, real characters anymore, no S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like, basically, it's like when Roger McKenzie was slowly trying to lead the book, it's like, basically, he was trying to write out S.H.I.E.L.D. Where's Bernie, you might ask? You know, one of Captain America's girlfriends. She has not made her debut yet. Let's see if we can find it here. Bernice Rhinestone. You think where's that girl? Makes her debut the very next issue. Yep. Like I said, very next issue is when she shows up, and I've kind of discussed pretty much most of her time in the book itself, and yeah. So with this particular trade here, I have now reviewed for Captain America from 100 to 301, and yes, effectively 200s are now completed here. And I'm already into 80s. So you might be curious. Okay, so how far have I got into Captain America comes to years wise? Well, since in fact the last issue in a row I read was 301, which I have reviewed already, so that came out in October 1984. So basically for Captain America, mostly put for the remainder of the thing, unless I get my hands in the Epic Collection individually, but first, before that, I'm going to try to cap off Volume 3 first, because that's only got 26 issues left, so I'm going to try to cap it off first. And then basically I'll come back to this book to cap it off, but that's it for that one. I get Masterworks Captain America Volume 20... It's 13. I'm going to give that roughly I'm going to give it 8.5 because it feels very much disjointed. Seems like the book was going slow downhill, like right after basically this book wrapped up. Now moving on to, if I can get the right page here. Come on. Thank you. Iron Man. Yep. Now here for Iron Man, we're only discussing issues 201 to 214 and number 9. Now the thing with the issues that come after this, I've actually discussed these issues already. You're thinking, where have I discussed them? Some of them anyways, but not all of them. Now, the next set of issues are actually not in trade. Basically from 215 to pretty much 257, I've already reviewed already. So this is mostly put like right after the Ironmonger storyline wrapped up. This is mostly put the next year of comics. The first 4 issues in here basically wrap up a story plot thread from the previous run, from the previous set of issues where you had Whitney. We had basically Madame Mask and Bethany Cabe where they swap bodies. Yeah, Madame Mask attacking Bethany Cabe, and Tony's like, "What is going on here?" He's like, "She swapped bodies with me." He's like, No, she's lying. And then eventually the story is wrapped up at 204. It's a storyline that lasts for a few issues. They also are trying to figure out a way to basically have Tony Stark get back his company. And he's also basically, from this point forward, using the Silver Centaurian armor. You're probably also asking, like, okay, when does Tony switch armors, you might ask. The answer, I don't know. But if you're real, okay, here's something that I always love bringing up here. The time period these issues came out. Started off with December 1985. That's what we started off with. And then we conclude with, this is of course prior to Prelude to Armor Wars. We finish up with October of 1986. Yeah. So, aside from dealing with, well, now as for the Iron Man armor, right now we're in Armor Mark 8. And you might be asking, when did they start using the next one, Mark 9? Mark 9 does not make its debut into issue 231, which I've discussed already. It's basically... yeah, that's pretty much when he just gets destroyed. So it's like the Silver Centauri is used for about a couple years. And then they switch up to more updated version. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mostly exactly what it is. Of course, Iron Man deals with AIM in 201. In 202, he deals with a Fixer. We also see in these issues the return of Happy Hogan briefly to the Iron Man comics. Yes, he had not been a player in the comics in some time. Mainly because basically Pepper didn't want anything to do with him. Because anytime they got involved with Tony, they get hurt. They're automatically targeted because they're friends of Tony's. Now, prior to the appearing in issue 201, and basically, well, technically in a way, 199, prior to 199, the last time he appeared in the book was issue 112. And after 210, which was the last time they appeared in the book, they didn't appear in the book until 284. And they took a break. They just don't want anything to do with Tony ever again. Because they kept getting hurt, so that was the reason for it. Yeah. There's also this woman, Clemens Erman. She's here for a very brief period of time. She actually is killed off not long after these issues. Yeah, she's here for pretty much as a regular character to 216. Yeah. Yeah, and of course they had her die prior to the start of Armor Wars. Yep. So yeah, the whole thing with Madame Mask, that's resolved in 204. That's what most of what that is. And then the very next issue, Iron Man deals AIM again, this time deal with frickin' MODOK. Yep, deals with MODOK. And then the very next issue, he has to deal with Goliath, who basically had become, it was actually Eric Johnson, previously was Smuggler. Hawkeye and Mockingbird gets on an issue, well, it's stuff to do with West Coast stuff, and do more AIM stuff. Yes, it's like basically this is the AIM issues. Yeah, and they're here for up until about mostly the 207. They skip for a while and they come back to 215, 16. Last appeared in 247. It's one of them, anyways. Yeah. And still deal with AIM. And then basically Tony deals with Morgan Le Fay in the issue 209. Yes, Morgan Le Fay. And then he deals with the Spy Master in 210. And more AIM stuff. And they also deal with the return of the Ironmonger suit. And he defeats that. And of course he has to deal with the Living Laser again. Last day of Living Laser last appeared in the issue of Secret Wars. There's also character Alex Fun. This is basically Bethany Cabe's husband. Yeah, he sadly dies in this in 210. Yeah. 2-8. Yeah. She actually had left him because the guy basically fell apart. He was a wreck, and he basically lost everything because he's someone idiot. He's very gullible. So basically, well, Beth decided to file for divorce with him. Yeah, and then he dies. Surprisingly. Yep. Also, they had this thing for a brief period of time where Tony and Iron Man sometimes were both Iron Man, and eventually sometimes Rose was not Iron Man. And then we have the Ironmonger, well, the guy who was Ironmonger, the replacement, who appeared for 212, and, well, he appeared like a couple more times after this. Appeared 213 in issue Split Up Assignment, and that was after his defeat at 213. He put on the armor again for 2, and never put on the armor ever again. Simon Steele, who appeared in the issues, yeah, he was a guest star from the pages of Web of Spider-Man. Yeah, he didn't return Web of Spider-Man afterwards. 212 and 213 is noteworthy for basically where they have the apparent death of, well, Dominique Fortune, who shows up in the very next issue perfectly. Well, they kill off one of them anyways. It's the son of the original. Yeah, they kill him off in 213 and in 214. He teams up with Spider-Woman because she had quit Freedom Force this period of time, and she had to kind of rejoin with them. They were, and of course, Valerie Cooper was threatening her with their daughter, basically sending her someplace else. Yeah, Valerie Cooper in this issue was not really a nice person. Also, I should point out that by 208, Danny O'Neill had left the book. Yep. He had left the book, and because basically 208 was his last issue he did for the book. And then 209, you have Dennis Meline, who does the writing for that one. 210 is Danny Figueroff. 211 is Howard Mankey with Alex Sevick on the artwork. 212 is Danny Figueroff with Dwayne Turner on the artwork. 213, still Danny Figueroff. And of course, 214 is like that too. It's a good set of issues. I do enjoy them. But now we discuss the anime that came out this period of time, anime number 8. Anime number 8 basically kills off the character of William Evans. Yeah, he gets killed off in this issue. Yeah, he was a character who showed up in the pages of Fantastic Four, and he returned for this one annual, and that was here's a guy named Grunt. Yeah, it's mostly also guest appearance by X Factor. It's done by Bob Harris and artwork by Paul Nuri. It's actually a really good book here. Also, Doris Evans, who's Willie Evans' mother, she gets killed off, and she probably died in this issue as well. Yeah, it's a good annual. I do appreciate it. Of course, the artwork's done by Walt Simonson, which is awesome. Yep. These actually are a really good set of issues. It is strange that you have Iron Man fighting, well, mostly AIM for like a dozen issues, then fight something else. Yeah, and it's strange the fact that these issues are not in trade. As for the reason for it, I'm not sure the reason for it at all, but I kind of wish they should be in trade, but they're not. Nope. And with this, basically, like, here's the thing with Iron Man Volume 1. I have 2 more sets of issues to cover. One is from stuff from Epic Collection. The other is basically stuff that's not been collected just yet. And then that'll be it for Volume 1. And he'll be done. If you're really curious, though, about, well, someone like Captain America, he's got a few books left to go. And then he's done. Like, if you're really, really curious, like, how many more Epic Collections have to go for him until he gets his first volume done? He also have Mark Bright do some of the artwork too. For Iron Man, well, there's like 1 Epic Collection left to go, but in all honestly, there is not much left for him to do. Not really. And then mostly probably stuff to go to that point, but just Volume 3, which is a lot to go for Volume 3. I do mean a lot. I have reviewed the last set of issues of the book, and I reviewed one of the issues tying into a cross with Thor. And of course, the opening dozen issues, and that's been pretty much it for Volume 3. I think I have a handful of trades left, that'd be pretty much done with that. But yeah, this is pretty much that particular view. Next is Bleach, and the next Comic Corner, that will cover Hulk and Avengers. Okay? Next video. Bye.